Hello everyone, good afternoon and thank you for joining us for this webinar on the AAT to CIMA journey with Georgie Walker from Burberry. Before I hand over to our speakers, there are a few housekeeping rules I would like to cover. To minimise disruption, you've all automatically been muted. If you have any questions, please pop them in the questions box as there will be a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Following this session, you'll be sent a copy of the recording of the webinar. So without further ado, I'll now hand over to Gary.
Thanks, Jack, and good afternoon to everyone joining the webinar today. Just before we get started, it would be great to get a bit more of an understanding of who we've got joining us on the webinar. So we've got a poll. If you can just select one of the answers, that would be great. We will have a couple of these questions throughout the course of the session. So if you can please vote now, and then we'll give that 15-20 seconds before we reveal the answers. Okay, great stuff. So it looks like we've got a lot of people, or 60% of the audience is at level 4, 33% at level 3, and 7% that are not studying AAT at the moment. But even though if you've not studied AAT or you finished studying AAT, the session will be really useful for you in terms of what we'll be going through today. So Jack, if you can stop the poll for us, please.
Sorry, I have stopped it. I've stopped sharing. Oh, there we go.
There we go. Thank you. And Georgie, if you don't mind coming on to the video.
Yes, of course.
Lovely. So, as a way of introduction, my name's Gary Smith. I work for CIMA as a employer relationship manager. So my role is to work with employers across the UK who support their employee through their CIMA journey. And I am delighted to be joined today by Georgie, who I met a year ago. Can't believe it's been a year. When Georgie had just finished AAT level 4 and was starting her journey with CIMA. But I won't steal all your thunder, Georgie. If you don't mind, do you want to introduce yourself to the audience today?
Yeah, so I'm Georgie Walker and I currently work at Burberry as an OPEX accountant. As Gary said, I've completed the AAT qualification and I've now moved on to CIMA.
Great stuff. And just for you, for the audience today, the way that we've got the session run is that me and Georgie will be having a discussion in her career so far from AAT to CIMA, and then we're joined by my colleague Trevor, who will then go through more information about the CIMA qualification. And then after that, we have about 15 minutes left for a Q&A session. So any questions that you've got, please put them into the chat, and between Georgie, myself and Trevor, we'll pick them up in the Q&A session. So Georgie, you've now been a year. What motivated, first I'm going to take it back a step for the audience and kind of just to give a bit of a flavour of what motivated you into getting into finance in the first place. And then the second part to the question is, what motivated you to study and then to become a chartered accountant?
Okay, so taking it way back, I started my accounting journey in 2013. I was 17, so I'd completed AS levels at sixth form, and then decided I just didn't really want to stay on and kind of study full time. So I applied for an apprenticeship at a small company in Leeds, as an apprentice accountant / like office admin type role. I worked there for 6 months, started my AAT level 2, and then I actually moved over to Mighty Facility Services and continued my studying there as an accounts assistant. So I was at Mighty for 3 years. I completed AAT level 2 at level 3 and started level 4 whilst I was there. In that time, I also moved from accounts assistant to assistant accountant, so I had a little promotion whilst I was there. And then I was approached by a recruiter at Burberry in 2017. So I've been there ever since, so just over 3 years now. I continued my studies there, so I completed AAT level 4, like you say, about this time last year, and then moved to CIMA. So what kind of the reasons why I went into finance? To be completely honest, I didn't know what I wanted to do at school at all. I just kind of looked at different types of jobs and thought that finance was going to give me kind of a lot of open doors to different types of careers within business. And I knew that I liked the business side of things, so I just kind of went down that route. I knew a couple of my dad's friends that were accountants, so I spoke to them. My dad's self-employed, so I looked at his books and things like that. Yeah, and I just found it interesting, so I thought, why not?
Yeah, no, it makes sense, and it sounds like it's worked out well for you. And you mentioned you've done the AAT for an apprenticeship. Is that something that was it a choice that you had at the start to study AAT and study an apprenticeship? Was there any kind of stigma, I suppose, behind studying being an apprentice? How did that make you feel?
Yeah, so my original role that I actually started the apprenticeship in, I didn't have a choice. That was part of the job. I had 1 day a week in college, the rest I worked. But when I moved to Mighty, I did have the choice to continue as a apprentice or to just kind of do it through the normal study route, like if you'd been to uni or whatever. But I decided to stay as an apprentice because I did like the benefits that it brought. So you are entitled to 20% off the job training. So it means that you can do some of your college and studying within the work week if you've got the time. You get a lot of support, so you have like support managers and things like that that kind of help guide you along the way. So yeah, I thought it was kind of the best option for me.
Yeah, and you're completely right there in terms of the apprenticeship. You know, you've got the opportunity to study an accounting qualification, and that's from an AAT perspective and from a CIMA perspective. You can study the qualification for an apprenticeship, and like you said there, there's a lot more support for you in terms of having more time off to study and prepare for your exams, having a skills coach there to support you through your qualification and your skills and behaviours of your apprenticeship. Your employer, I suppose, is more invested in you because they need to feed back to the tuition providers that you're going through to make sure that you're on track. So yeah, although there's a stigma of apprenticeships or being an apprentice, it's a great opportunity, both from employers thinking about putting people through apprentices, but actually being an apprentice yourself, the more support that you get there is really good. And you can do that from AAT and studying it through CIMA as well. So when it comes to studying, why did you choose CIMA? I suppose a lot of people on the webinar today is, why did you choose CIMA after AAT?
So since I started AAT, I knew that I always wanted to kind of progress on through further qualification after completing my AAT. The main options for me were CIMA or ACCA. But I've kind of read up on both. I spoke to a lot of people at work who had studied both CIMA and ACCA, and CIMA just seems much more, I want to say, management accountant rather than financial. I know a lot of jobs now, they do accept both qualifications, because I do think before it used to be quite split. But I'd want to go more business partner and focused and be more involved on that side of things. And I think CIMA is much more focused to that. So it's a lot about business rather than just the numbers.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. And that's the question that I get asked a lot when I'm going out to employers and people are having that decision of, do I choose CIMA or do I choose ACCA? What is the difference? And I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Georgie, in terms of having that more business focus, how you add value to the business as opposed to looking at auditing and advanced tax. You know, you still got a financial pillar within the CIMA qualification, but it's how that works with your organisation to paint the picture both from a financial, but then you've got the non-financial aspect of it. So it makes sense that the career that you want to go, you see your career going, choosing CIMA sounds like the right choice.
Yeah, definitely.
So you've now started CIMA. From when you started, was it you registered with us this year?
Yeah, so it was just going into lockdown that I registered. It was in April.
Right, okay. And how did lockdown affect you in terms of your studying or your progression through the CIMA qualification?
So there was a slight delay with getting my exemption signed off. So with AAT, you get exemptions for the first level of CIMA. So there was a slight delay there that pushed me back a little bit. And normally I would do my studying in classroom. So I just feel like I learn better if I'm kind of in the classroom. But that wasn't an option this year with COVID. So I did the live online classes, which really surprised me, to be honest. And I think I do actually prefer them now, because you've still got somebody there, you can still ask questions. But I think because you're not in that classroom setting, you're not seeing everybody's faces. I feel like people ask questions more because you don't have that kind of, everybody's going to think, why am I asking this question? Because nobody knows who you are. So I've studied live online this year, and it's also good you can watch them back as well. So you can go back over the recordings if there was something that you didn't quite grasp. So yeah, I've done one exam and I've got one more to go that I will be sitting in January now, because that got cancelled because of COVID again with lockdown.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of things that you've highlighted there in terms of when people are registering for CIMA or when they're looking to start CIMA, they don't realise how long the process takes. So if you are applying for exemptions, our exemption team have a policy of 20 working days. So that is pretty much, a month that you're losing to find out whereabouts you're starting. And the good news, like you say, if you've completed AAT, you know that you're going to be exempt from our certificate level. So you'll know you're going to be starting from the operational level. So you can start studying a certain exam that you're looking for. Now, one thing to suggest is that when you do apply for your exemptions, make sure you highlight in the subject heading that you put exemptions AAT level 4, because that should the process should be faster for you, because it's normally about 5 working days that it can be turned around, but it needs to be highlighted when it's going to our exemptions team. But yeah, like you say, in terms of the way that you studied, did you do face-to-face study when you done AAT, Georgie?
Yeah, so the whole of AAT I did face-to-face.
So it's been the same in terms of the transition from studying AAT and then studying CIMA. There's not been much difference in terms of the actual study method or the way that you study.
No.
But like you say, with COVID that's happened and lockdown, a lot of the tuition providers have had to stop their classroom learning. But again, it's what we see from other students as well, is that the online live is just as good as face-to-face. And if you are one of them students that are quite hesitant to put your hand up in front of a class, you don't have to do that in front of online live, because you've got the chat box and you can chat to a tutor as opposed to putting it out to everyone if you didn't want to. How did you find your first exam? What did you do to plan to pass, or you passed your first exam? I suppose give everyone that good news. But how did you plan to pass your exams?
I kind of followed the same route that I've done at AAT, really. I think everybody studies completely different, so it doesn't work for everybody, but I prefer to study in small parts, so I'd rather do kind of half an hour before work every morning, maybe half an hour again on an evening. I can't just sit for hours and look at my books. Like, my brain just doesn't work like that. So yeah, I basically carried on the same way that I did AAT. I used the revision cards. I did a lot of practice questions. There's a practice exam on the Pearson VUE platform as well. So where you book your exam, you can also do a practice exam on there. So I completed that. And then, yeah, my exam, I felt it was pretty much similar to AAT. I did it in a different place. So I normally do them at Kaplan, and I did it at the Pearson VUE Centre. But in terms of the layout of the exam and everything, I found it pretty similar, because it's computer based, and that's what AAT is as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the exams being computer based. They're on demand, available anytime, and since lockdown as well, CIMA's made that opportunity for students to sit exams from home, or they can sit exams from test centre. So it's giving you the option that if you feel comfortable going to a test centre, or having that plan of, right, I'm going to get there by a certain time, I know where I'm going and how to get there, or if you're a bit anxious about, well, what about this traffic, what about if I miss this and miss that, you can sit it at home where you're a bit more comfortable. So it gives the opportunity for students to sit either way, and it doesn't stop your progression. If that's something that you want to sit exams at home, you've got that availability there too. But yeah, so when it comes to, I suppose, sitting your exam, or should I say, when you study, you're saying that you do half hour in the morning, half hour in the evening. Did that change at all with lockdown? Because you're not allowed to go anywhere, or you can't go down the pub no more, or what did you do anything different because you had a lot more time on your hands, or did you stick to that routine?
I tried to stick to the routine. I don't think it does anybody good to kind of overkill the revision side of things. I still try to get out, go for walks, go do exercise, and not kind of get bogged down into the revision constantly, because especially with working from home, to then sit at home and revise all evening, you could get into kind of a routine of not even seeing daylight. But it was good because I did feel less pressure of having to plan my revision, because there wasn't, like you say, there wasn't much else to do. So it wasn't a case of, I'm going out for dinner this evening, so I need to do more revision on a different day. I didn't really have anything else to do. So
yeah, and like you said there, it's getting that work, life, and personal balance. You know, you don't want to be stuck in the book for 2 weeks or 2 months on end and not see no one or not see no day of light. But when you're going to be working as well, it's how do you juggle that? You know, how do you juggle when busy times at work and when you're planning your exams? Is there any kind of tips that you've got for the audience on what you do?
yeah, it is quite difficult. So I would have said previously that I used to kind of look over my revision cards on the way to work and on the way back from work. So like if you're on a bus or a train, again, that's different now. Most people are working from home. I guess the main thing, I do like the revision cards. Sometimes on like a lunchtime, I'd look over them. And in terms of balancing with work, so for example, month-end weeks, really full on. There's not really much spare time to do anything other than month-end. So I'd kind of give myself a bit of a break that week, because I knew that I'd just burn myself out by trying to fit all my revision in and my exam. So when I book an exam, I make sure it's not in month-end week, and I try and do it towards the end of the week after, or even the week after that, so that I know I've got a few days for my brain to recover from month-end and the busyness of that, and to then pick up my revision for a few days just before my exam as well.
Yeah. And when do you schedule your exam? I know you said you schedule it at a certain time within the month, but what I mean by that question is, when do you schedule it? Do you schedule it at the start of your course, halfway through your course, once you finish your course? What kind of plan do you have for scheduling your exam?
I try and schedule it as soon as I start the course. Obviously, you get your course date. So, say for example, your course starts the 1st of April, ends the last day of May. I'd work out then how long I need. So I'd give myself probably a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks after the last course date to book my exam then. But I think if you don't book your exam at the beginning of your course, you could get into dangerous territory that you might keep pushing it and pushing it. Whereas when I book it in, I aim for that date, and unless exceptional circumstances like it was cancelled because of COVID, I wouldn't ever change my exam date.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice, because, like I say, you've got that goal. You know that you've got that goal of when you're going to sit that exam, and tuition providers always say this to students as well: is that once the course finishes, make sure you sit that exam within 2 weeks after your course finishes, because all the knowledge that you've learned is still in your brain within that first 2 weeks. As soon as you get past them 2 weeks, stuff starts to filters out, and then it makes it harder and harder. So that's great advice as well. And when it comes to completing the full qualification, do you have any plans in place to say, I need to finish a certain level by this time and this time? What kind of structure do you have in place for becoming qualified?
So I actually still study CIMA as an apprentice. I think I'm set out at the beginning. So when you have a talent coach, they kind of help you plan for when your end date will be. So I think my plan is to finish by 2022, like summer 2022. So we basically have that as the end date and then work backwards. So I need to have done this exam by this date, this exam, finish this level by then, and kind of work back to where I am now. Again, COVID has pushed it slightly. Might be pushing it back a few months now. But I do think, again, that's key to kind of get an end date for the whole qualification, because obviously things change and life changes, but the sooner you get it done, it's ticked off, it's finished, you've got better opportunities in the workplace, you're fully qualified, you can kind of breathe a little bit. Whereas I think if you leave it hanging on and maybe doing one exam a year and it just drags on and drags on, that may work for some people, but it wouldn't work for me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense to me too. And I suppose just finally, how has CIMA complemented your role? How have you seen what you've learned so far? I know it's only been a short space of time where you've studied the first 2 exams, but is there anything there that you've learned or picked up that's helped you within your current role?
Yeah, definitely. I thought that straight away. So the first first course that I studied was E1, so that's managing finance in a digital world. And I think it's just so current to how most businesses work. Obviously, being in a FTSE 100 company, it's quite modern and up to date with the processes. And a lot of what I did in college and kind of the hierarchies of, say, business, different types of business models, I could see exactly how they work in Burberry. So it was really good to see that kind of clear connection, and just build on everything that I'd already learned in AAT, really. So yeah, I did my first course I really enjoyed, the E level. And then P1 is more to do with budgeting and forecasting, which at the point I am now at work is what I'm trying to get more involved in as well. So it works quite well. I'm kind of working along my career at the same time as going along with my CIMA studies. So definitely helpful.
And do you have a plan, you know, in terms of when you've finished and become qualified, is there a certain career path that you've got that you're looking to do? Like, you know, your role that you said at the moment as an OPEX accountant, where do you see your career going to? So what role do you want to get to?
It's hard to say as well. Being at Burberry, there's so many different roles. It's kind of not a clear path of, it used to be very much accounts assistant, accountant, financial controller, financial director, whereas at Burberry it's quite broad. There's lots of different roles. I think definitely some sort of business partner, finance business partner is my goal, but who knows as I go along.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing with the qualification that the CIMA qualification you're studying. It opens up a lot of doors for you in terms of where your career goes. You know, it could go like that traditional financial route up to CFO, or you could go vertical across HR, marketing, IT. The opportunity is there for you in terms of the skills that you pick up. And just one final question then, just before we move on to Trevor to go through the CIMA qualification. What advice would you give to the audience today who are considering studying CIMA?
I definitely think it's worth it. It's not easy, and I wouldn't ever tell somebody that studying's easy or that CIMA's an easy qualification and you'll just blitz through it, because it's not. But to have a CIMA qualification, it shouldn't be easy. Like, it should be the best people in finance that push themselves, drive themselves in the career, want to match that with a qualification and kind of continue to grow throughout the career. And if you do want to progress and build your career, like you say, either vertical or horizontal, you do kind of need that qualification to back you up and support you through that. So I definitely think it's a good choice.
Lovely, that's great advice, Georgie, and a nice way to end. We're gonna come back on in about 15-20 minutes for the questions from the audience. But for the time being, thank you for your time, Georgie, and thank you for talking to us today a year on. I'm going to pass over to my colleague Trevor now, who's going to go through the presentation to provide you with more information about CIMA and where it can take you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you, Georgie. Fascinating oversight there as to studying CIMA. We can obviously go to the questions, as Gary mentioned, later on. My name's Trevor. I work for the employee side of things at CIMA. I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes or so just running through CIMA, who we are, what we do, and more importantly, what we can do for your career moving forward. So let's have a look at the content we're going to be going through. First of all, what is CIMA? A bit about the CIMA qualification itself. We're then going to run through your study options, have a chat about what is management accounting. We're going to look through the future of finance, what's in store for us in the next few years and moving forward for the industry. And finally, we're going to have a look at getting started, registering for CIMA, and how to progress with your studies. So first of all, CIMA, who are we, what do we do? Well, first of all, Chartered Institute of Management Accountants is what CIMA stands for. Been around a long time, established in 1919. We are the world's largest body of professional management accountants. Part of the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants. As such, we're a global organisation and the most useful accounting qualification for a career in business. Now, once qualified, a CIMA graduate receives what we call the CGMA, or Chartered Global Management Accountancy designation, and that qualification is recognised worldwide. Speaking of worldwide, this slide here kind of summarises where we're at. We have over 650,000 members and students, and it's important to point out that well over 500,000 of those are fully qualified and paid up members of CIMA. Not just students, they're fully qualified members. We have around about 30 offices worldwide, serving 180 countries, and there's currently over 173,000 employers employing CIMA graduates. We're going to have a quick poll now, so Jack, if you could kindly launch the next poll. I'll read it out anyway, and then give you just a few seconds to run through your answers. But the question is basically, how many exemptions do you get from CIMA if you've completed AAT level 4? And I'm sure for those of you paying attention, that's an easy one for you. Just give you a few seconds there to put your answers in. And the answer, of course, is 4. You have 4 exemptions, the entire certificate level of that qualification. Okay, and we're now going to just launch another poll. And this time, the question is, how much do exemptions cost? Are they free? Do they cost £380? Do they cost £500? Answers on the poll, please. And the answer's straightforward. It's an obvious answer again. It's free. It's free to take exemptions for CIMA. And please don't hesitate to accept them if they're relevant. Okay, so let's move on. As we just discussed about exemptions, you can see from this snapshot of the CIMA qualification that everything at the certificate level, if you currently have AAT level 4, is from your perspective. So you start what we call the operational level. Okay, now I'll run through that in a bit more detail. So just to clarify, if you're at AAT level 4, you will start the CIMA qualification. Looking at the whole CIMA qualification in its entirety, it looks quite scary and complicated. It's really not. It's in 4 levels, starting off at the certificate level, and it's in 3 columns on the right-hand side at the final pillar there. So again, starting at the bottom, certificate level, operational level, management level, and the final year is the strategic level. And in terms of the columns, the column on the right, the financial pillar there, is what we call the accountancy pillar. So all the traditional accountancy skills that you will learn, that you'll need, are taken in that financial pillar. The central pillar, or the performance pillar, really starts to look at taking that information and transferring it into a business model. How do you apply it within your organization? And then finally, the left-hand pillar, the enterprise pillar, is all about learning to run a business. So organizational management, project and relationship management, strategic management, all of that aspect there is in the enterprise pillar. Now, in terms of taking the exams, starting at the certificate level, you have 4 objective tests there. They can be taken in any order. They're 2 hours long each, and as I say, on demand, either online or in a classroom if you prefer. It's entirely up to you. Once you've qualified and passed that level, you move on to the operational level, which is the start of what we call the professional CIMA qualification. Bit of a change of format this time. Again, you're going to have 3 on-demand exams. So E1, P1, and F1 are on-demand exams. They're 90 minutes long each, taken in any order. But then you actually have what we call a case study to finish that level. Now, the case study itself is a 3-hour synoptic exam. They're held 4 times a year in February, May, August, and November. And those exams will summarize and test all the knowledge and skills you've learned in those previous 3 exams. So you need to pass those to go to the next level, and then pass the next level, and so forth. It takes approximately 3 to 5 years in total. We recommend 3 years is a good thing to aim for. And apart from passing your exams, you're also going to need to accrue a total of 3 years professional work experience, or PER experience, as we refer to it. Now, 18 months of that needs to be at intermediate or advanced level. More information on our website, and don't worry about it too much now, obviously, but in due course, you'll need to understand that. And just to reiterate, our exams can be online, or once the test centres are reopened, you can go back into the test centres and study in the test centres for the examinations. Right, one thing we've actually put in this year is what we call exam blueprints. The idea is to make sure that your chances of passing your exam are as high as possible the first time you take your exam. Now, these are updated annually. They're free to download from our website. There's 3 documents in total, 1 for each level of the qualification, and there are 4 sections per blueprint. An overview of the level that you're on, a case study exam business simulation, objective test representative tasks, and finally the section there with all your formulas, appendices, etc., etc. So fairly straightforward. Hope that makes sense. Different ways to study. There's no right or wrong way here. It can be with a tuition provider. It may be online with cimastudy.com. It could be a mixture of CIMA Study texts and materials, or a combination of the above. Just to reiterate, no right or wrong way here. If you do get a chance or you have the funds to use a tuition provider, always an advantage, purely because they have lots of experience, lots of study tips, lots of information. That would always get my vote. But as I say, it's not compulsory. Have a look at your options again on our website. The address is on the bottom there. So why study with CIMA? Well, the question I get asked a lot actually is, what is a business management accountant? How does it compare with a traditional accountant? It's very simple. In simple terms, a traditional accountant generally focuses on the past, and a management accountant tends to focus on the future. And these 2 paragraphs here really summarize that. So looking at the traditional accountants, they will typically look at the past information of the entire company to comply with legislation. Okay, they create external reports. They're prescribed in terms of requirements within the organization. They measure finance data only, and they look at quantitative data only. Okay, moving on to the management side, this is all about looking at the future. So you'll analyze data, really looking at to be able to make business decisions. You're creating reports for internal business use, really focused on what the business needs are, and you'll be measuring finance and operational performance. Now, this time you'll be looking at both qualitative and quantitative data, and if necessary, you can focus on specific parts of the business. So the 2 are quite different. And just to summarize that here, I think this slide kind of really puts the whole thing together. It's all about looking to, or learning to look beyond the numbers. Okay, so you're going to be applying this knowledge to create growth and provide strategic advice in order for your company to grow and move forward. In terms of the range of companies you can work with, pretty much every sector of business will employ CIMA graduates, whether it be financial services, media and publishing, leisure and transport, you name it. All of these sectors here, all of these companies here are employing CIMA graduates. And in terms of the type of role you're working in, sure, whilst you're studying finance, you're going to be in a finance role. But there's nothing to stop you once you're qualified moving to a different part of the business, should you so wish. So it might be commercial, you may wish to go into consultancy, operations, and hopefully eventually into a senior executive role. The world quite literally is going to be your oyster. So the future of finance. Every few years or so, we will update our syllabus to make sure that we're teaching relevant information. And it's not something we do lightly. We don't just make it up on the hoof. Before we put that syllabus together, we go out to, in this case, for this year's syllabus, over 2,000 organizations globally and over 5,500 finance professionals. We ask really just 3 very simple questions. As an organization, what are you doing now? What are you going to be doing in the future? And what do we need to do as CIMA to make sure that our qualification remains relevant in the industry? Now, what we found is that there are 5 key sectors driving the finance function. They are globalization, geopolitics, consumer empowerment, technology, and demography. Now, you can see we've highlighted technology purely because by far technology is going to be the biggest change driver for the finance world moving forward, pretty much indefinitely. Now, in terms of what that means in the finance world, you can split it really into 2 sections: technology that's here now and technology that's going to be here in the very near future. In terms of technology here now, things such as cloud computing, visualization, and process robotics. And in terms of technology here in the future, in some cases it's already here, advanced analytics, cognitive computing, in-memory computing, and blockchain. So what does that mean for the finance industry? Well, look, this gives you some idea of the areas of employment that are at risk from automation. And it pretty much includes everybody. Starting on the right-hand side, managing others, 9%, okay? We start to get involved in that, and also centrally applying expertise, start to apply to the finance world particularly, then look at the last two columns there, data collection, data processing, 64% and 69%. Those are massive numbers, and they apply directly to us in the finance world. These are from McKinsey, and the important strapline there is where machines can replace humans and where they can't, brackets, yet. So do be aware of that. What does this mean for us? This slide here really think it kind of puts it in perspective. When I first saw this slide, I assumed it was for a global company for an annual finance report. It is a global company, but it's a quarterly forecast. The company concerned do this, would you believe, 4 times a year. And as you can see, using traditional finance function accounting methods, 800 people, 1 month, 16,000 days, put that report together. And then guess what? Along comes an RPA system. It takes 2 people, 2 days, 4 working days in total. Now, there's no way that we can hope to compete with that. And the frightening thing is, it won't be long before that 4 days becomes 4 hours, then 4 minutes, and then probably 4 seconds, okay? The 2 lines at the bottom sum it up. Not using RPA is the business equivalent of walking on the motorway. And yet, frighteningly, according to a report from KPMG this year, only 3% of companies surveyed believe that their finance teams have the skills required moving forward. Don't take my word for it. These reports on our website, the link is there. They're free to download. Fascinating reading. I would start off with the report in the center, the changing shape of the finance function. They take about 20 minutes, half an hour each. They're fairly straightforward, very succinct. Please do read them. You'll find them very useful. Okay, now what does that affect the CIMA qualification? Well, all of these subjects here, no surprises, I guess, are new to the syllabus for this year. Spot the D word: data strategy, data analytics, data visualization, digital technologies, digital strategy, digital costing, all in there for very good reason. A couple of areas from left field: cybersecurity for obvious reasons. There's a whole host of criminals out there looking to steal our data. You need to understand from a business perspective how you're affected and how to combat that as necessary moving forwards. Also, things like ecosystems analysis, not just the green systems and processes within your organization, but how the whole cost and function system of your organization works, how it all hangs together. You need to understand that. Okay, case studies. On our website, you'll see a number of case studies there, including some quotes from AAT members. And probably the most useful of these here are the one on the bottom right-hand side from the finance controller at Argyle Football Club. As he says there, as the general accountancy sector changes the event of automation and artificial intelligence, I expect the skills instilled by the CIMA qualification will increase in demand from the accounting sector as a whole. Quite right. So in terms of getting started, how to register within CIMA, first of all, you're on our website, following the procedure there. Register as a student, it costs you £77. And then make sure you apply for your exemptions. As we discussed previously, they're free, no cost involved. Take your exemptions if they're relevant. Choose your study method, whether it be study at home or tuition provider. Then last but not least, and this is key, schedule your exam. Now that's important purely because if you don't, I can guarantee you're going to spend the first 6 months doing probably nothing. Okay, and before you know it, you'll be halfway through the year, you've got nowhere within your qualification. Once you schedule your exam, adds that extra bit of pressure, and with your study plan, make sure you stay on time and on target to pass your first exam. If you need to defer, you can do that. There's no cost involved, so you can change it, but having that psychological pressure in place to make sure it's there is going to help you. So we've got another poll now. Jack, if we can launch the poll, I shall read it out again. And this time it says, what discount do you get off your AAT membership if you study CIMA? Is it A, none, B, 25%, or C, 50%? And the answer is C. If you've got AAT membership, and you study CIMA, you will get 50% discount off your AAT membership. Okay, so let's now just move on. Student benefits. Once you become a student member, you get all the usual suspects within the CIMA organisation for student support. So typical study support there, exam revisions, NUS card, community support. We've got the graduate club, lots of student groups. There's support that help you find a job in the My Jobs website, lots of employer recognition, online salary checking. And in the news and events there, we have a monthly magazine called the FM magazine. It's a global magazine. Good read, actually, well worth it. You'll get it in PDF format. Please have a look through. In terms of contacting CIMA, any issues or questions, best bet is always to give us a call, or we're on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, whichever you prefer. So, having said that, anybody got any questions? Fire away, please. Don't be shy.
Okay, so we had a few come through. Gary, did you want me to read them out?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Jack.
Yeah.
Anybody at all, Jack? Can you see anything from your side?
Yeah. I've had a few questions come through. So what kind of work do I need to have experience in doing before I start CIMA?
So I'll take that first question. So in terms of the practical experience that you need to start CIMA, it's none. And you don't need no experience in order to start CIMA. Okay. In order for you to become a chartered global management accountant, which the CGMA designation is what you receive once you become qualified, you need 3 years worth of practical experience. Now that practical experience, you'll pick that up as you go through your work, in terms of as you're studying, it normally takes about 3 years to complete. So you're picking up your work experience as you're studying at the same time. Now, when it comes to the practical experience, there's certain areas that you need to look at. And this relates back to our CGMA competency framework. Now, a competency framework is the framework behind the CIMA syllabus. And this is relating to what Trevor said about the research that we do as an association, which looks at what does the well-rounded finance professional need in order to future-proof your career. And the competency framework has technical skills, which is, I imagine, would be an obvious one to start with. You need to have them technical accounting skills. Then you need to have business skills, so how you apply them within the world of business. Then it's all well and good having them two skills, but it's then how you use them from a people skills perspective, so how you're communicating. And then you've got leadership skills, so whether that's leading a project, whether that's leading a team. And in the middle of that competency framework is digital skills. And that's recently been highlighted, and it's in the middle there because it touches everyone every day. And the way that the world's going with finance, you're going to need to know a lot more digital skills. Not necessarily all of them, but you just need to have an understanding of certain aspects of them. And it's all underpinned by ethics and integrity. So the main focus when it comes to your practical experience is that you don't need none to start, but you need 3 years practical experience in order to become professionally qualified, mainly across technical and business skills, which is going to be your focus, with certain aspects of people and leadership skills as well.
Okay, so this question's for you, Georgie. They've asked, would Georgie recommend moving on to CIMA as soon as possible, or to complete AAT level 4, then move on to CIMA?
So the way I did it was completed AAT level 4 and then signed up for CIMA as soon as I could. That worked best for me. I didn't really want a break between studying, so I think it'd be harder to get back into. But I think AAT level 4 really helps kind of the foundations for what you learn in CIMA, so it is worth doing, definitely. But yeah, I'd push to go straight through into CIMA as quick as you can.
Okay, and what are the differences in doing CIMA as an apprenticeship and studying CIMA just by attending classroom lessons?
Georgie, did you want to take that aspect from how you study from an apprenticeship?
Yeah, sure. So as an apprentice, I get 20.
I'll take that one, Jack. Thank you.
I get 20% off the job training, so that actually means that I can spend 1 day a week completing like a college day. So I do the live online daytime classes, through the week, which is a massive benefit. So I have previously done evening classes, which when you've worked a full week, it is quite hard. And like I said earlier, you kind of do get a mentor. So they're called talent coaches if you study through Kaplan, and I think they're similar at other places as well. And they kind of have check-ins with you every 6 weeks just to make sure that you're doing okay, that if you need any support with anything, they kind of check in with your line manager to make sure that everything's fine at work. It's just kind of like an extra person to query anything with if you've got any questions, or for them to point you in the right direction. So I do think an apprenticeship is worth it, and obviously it's subsidised, so it doesn't cost you any money.
Great stuff. And Trevor, did you want to mention the other side from someone that might not be on an apprenticeship?
Yeah, certainly from our side of things, we come across this idea of stigma towards apprenticeships, which is absolutely nonsense. Please, if you come across that and you feel that somehow an apprenticeship is a second-rate qualification, it's really not. In fact, the way that it's structured actually adds a benefit to you as a CIMA student, because we have something built into the process called an endpoint assessment, which ensures that you have the experience required not only to pass your exams, but also to pass the practical requirements and experience of the CIMA qualification. Once that's signed off, you automatically then are qualified to sign up for CIMA membership straight away. And it saves you the cost of actually signing a membership fee as well. So lots of benefits there. Georgie mentioned this 20% off the job in terms of studying. That's a benefit. So please, it's not a second class way of studying. Anybody with a head on their shoulders nowadays will jump at the chance to take an apprenticeship. It's the first class route to qualification.
Yeah, and I think just finally, just to add from that, is that if you don't have that opportunity, so if you're not currently working with an employer that's set up on an apprenticeship scheme, you can still study CIMA. So
anything else?
I was going to say, in terms of the way that you progress through the qualification, it's the same qualification. So it's the same qualification you're studying. It will take the same amount of time potentially, if not, so it doesn't matter whether you do an apprenticeship or not. But I just think, just to highlight to what Georgie and Trevor just mentioned there, is that it's a great opportunity for you to do that. However, you have to work with an employer that supports their apprentices or uses an apprenticeship scheme. If they don't, you can still study the qualification, and it's exactly the same qualification that you study.
Okay, great stuff. I think there's a bit of a sound delay with Trevor, but I'll just move on to the next question. So is there any kind of financial support available with paying for the CIMA qualification? What are the financing options?
Okay, I think I'll take that question. In terms of the financial options, I think what we've just mentioned there from an apprenticeship perspective, that is a financial option in terms of it's paid through the government. So an employer pays us an apprenticeship levy if they have a over 3 million wage bill. If they don't, then it can still be claimed back a certain amount, percentage of the cost as well. So, but that is done through an employer. If you work for an employer, they can generally pay for it and claim it back. In terms of any general government grants or government scheme or anything like that, there's no financial schemes available where it will be paid for you. So it is a self-study qualification. It is a pay-as-you-go qualification. So it's not any upfront fees. You pay your registration fee of £77, and then as you progress through exam, you pay for your study method, and then you pay for your exam, and then you pay for your study method, then pay for your exam. So you don't have to pay a one lump sum. It is a pay-as-you-go method, but there are opportunities for you to be funded through an employer, whether that's through an apprenticeship scheme or maybe just in general to upskill yourself within your company.
Okay. How does the layout of the exam compare to that of the AAT?
Georgie, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if this means the actual exam itself or kind of the structure of when you take exams, so I'll cover both. So the actual exam, obviously, like I said earlier, is computer based, so that's quite similar. It's all multiple choice, so there is some of that in AAT, but there isn't actually any written questions until you get to case studies in CIMA. And in terms of the booking of exams, like Gary mentioned earlier, they're like on demand. So I know that some qualifications like ACCA, they have set dates per quarter that you can sit exams, whereas CIMA, you can sit them pretty much any time, especially now with the option to sit exams at home. I think you can sit them like a lot of out of hours as well, if I'm right, Gary. Like earlier on, later at night, and kind of any days as well, which is obviously a great benefit because you're not set to one exact exam date. So that's quite similar to AAT in the way that you can move your exams around a little bit if you need to.
Okay, just filtering through now. How long do you normally wait for your results after exams?
Georgie, you've passed one, so I'll let you explain that one.
Yeah, so instant. So within a couple of minutes coming out of your exam, you'll get given a sheet of paper. Is Trevor taking that one?
Sorry, Georgie, carry on.
Yeah, so you get a provisional result within a few minutes, and then I think it's within 48 hours then you kind of get an official pass or fail on the CIMA website to check.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly that. Yeah, so you get your pass or fail, and in 48 hours on your MyCIMA account, it breaks down, doesn't it, Georgie, where certain areas of the exam that you was proficient or not proficient in. So, if, for example, you was unsuccessful, you'd be able to highlight what areas you'd need to relook at.
Yeah.
Someone's asked, do you find it beneficial having other colleagues studying qualifications at the same time?
Yeah, 100%. I know at our work there's a fair few people studying, not just CIMA, so there's AAT studiers, ACCA and ACA students. But we kind of have, like, when we was in the office, little study clubs. So if someone was staying late in the office to revise, we'd see if anybody else was, book a meeting room, order some food in together so we could have a break from studying on the evening to have some food and have a break from revision. And yeah, I think just if you're struggling with anything, there's people there that may have just passed that exam or done that exam recently. So it definitely is beneficial having other people studying.
Okay. I'm 36 years old and I'm halfway through my AAT. Am I too old to start CIMA?
No. Not at all. No age on it at all. In all the classes I've been in, there's been a complete range of ages. So in AAT and CIMA, it's from people that's just left school, just left uni, and all the way up into kind of adult life, when people might have always been in accounts but never really done a qualification as such, or they might have had a complete career change. But I don't think there's an age at all that you should stop studying. No.
No, there's no age limit to the CIMA qualification. And just to add to that question, we have people over 50 that sign up to become qualified. So age is just a number, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely. I look after the membership application days, and we often I see applications from people in their 50s. So yeah, it's quite common. We haven't had any more questions come through, so I don't know if we want to wait maybe a couple of minutes for more to come through, or.
Yeah, sorry, Jack. I've just had a couple that have come through while you was there. It said here to Georgie, how long did it take you to pass your exam from when you started studying to passing your exam? What kind of time frame do you have for each exam?
Okay, so it's a little bit difficult for my first exam because I sat my course before I had my exemption signed off, so I couldn't book my exam until my exemptions had come through. So I sat the course in May and June, and then my exemptions came through at the end of June, and then I think I booked my exam for August. P1 would have been a lot quicker, so I sat the course in October and my exam was booked for November, but due to COVID, that's been pushed back. So I think each course, if it depends obviously how you study it. So with the day study, you have maybe 6 days worth of study, and then I give a couple of weeks and then book my exam. Well, have my exam booked.
Yeah. So would you say roughly between 6 to 8 weeks from starting the course to taking your exam?
Yeah, that'd be the aim, I think, to try and get through them. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And there's a separate question to that kind of relates to time, and it says, you know, how long does it take to complete the full qualification? And there's no time limit for students to complete the full qualification. What we see on average is, especially for AAT students that's moving into CIMA, you've got the operational level, management level, strategic level, and they've got 3 objective tests and then a case study exam. And it's normally a year for each level for you to complete. So if you're starting, say, in January, we're saying to you in the November exam sitting, that's where you want to aim to your case study. And then you can work back and say, right, where can I fit my 3 objective test between when work's busy or not so busy, and then to plan to finish that level. So it's normally a year for each level, and it ties in quite nicely where if you're not an apprentice, you have to submit 3 years practical experience. If it takes you 3 years to do your exams, you've also got your 3 years practical experience as well. Another question that we've got is around the pillars or the exams themselves. How can you complete a pillar? And I think what they mean by that is that, can I do the enterprise pillar? So for an example, E1, E2 and E3. And the answer to that would be no. The way that it works is you have to do the 3 objective test exams. Now, we recommend the way that George is doing it is the way that's recommended from CIMA, where you do the enterprise pillar first. So if from the operational level, you do E1 first, okay? So you're getting the understanding of how finance works within business. Then you're doing P1, we call that the internal finance, so how finance works within the business. And then you've got the financial pillar, which is the external part of the business, or external finance. So that's your financial statements, financial tax, financial regulatories. So it kind of works across. However, whatever works best for you, we see people work the other way around. The knowledge that you learn within your studies will make you pass that exam. You don't need to know the knowledge from other exams in order to pass one exam, but they recommend that flow because it gives you a more understanding of how it works, and then you sit the case study. So once you've got the case study, at the operational level, you get a diploma. At the management level, you get an advanced diploma. So although the ultimate goal is to become professionally qualified, where you become an ACMA, CGMA, but you also get qualifications within the qualification. So people are aware, internally and external stakeholders are aware of what you've done and what you're about as well.
Okay. I've got another question that's just come through. Can you get the required experience for the qualification from working in a small business, not in the accountancy sector?
Absolutely. Yeah, in terms of what we've talked about, the different roles that you can study within CIMA is the reason why there's so many different. Yeah, go on, Trevor. I'm not sure if you're having sound issues there, Trevor.
Sorry, there's a delay about 5 miles long at my end. Carry on.
Yeah, no worries. As I say, it sounds like there's a delay there. So in terms of your experience, because of the variety of different roles, the way that it would work is that you do technical skills, and there's a different drop downs of technical skills. And then there's got business skills, and there's a variety of different drop downs on business skills as well. And it will all depend. You don't need to complete all of them. It will just depend on what's relevant to your work. So whether you're in a small business, whether you're in a large corporate, it doesn't matter. As long as you're hitting the required skills at an intermediate level and above, then that will be sufficient. But by all means, what I check is just Google CIMA practical experience requirements, and you'll be able to look at the full breakdown of what's required for your practical experience.
Okay, great. No more questions unless, Gary, you had any more.
No more's come through from my end, Jack. No.
Perfect. So I think we'll wrap it up there. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending and participating in today's webinar. We'd be grateful if you could take a few minutes to give us your feedback online. You'll find the link in the chat box now. We'll also send you the link along with the recording of the webinar a bit later on. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.